12 R&B stars said no to these songs and handed someone else the biggest hit of their lives. There is a kind of grief in music history that doesn't get talked about enough. Not the grief of the artist who failed, not the grief of the record that went unnoticed. The grief of the song that found its home in someone else's hands. 12 times an R&B artist was handed something extraordinary. 12 times they said no, and 12 times a door opened for someone who was standing in the hallway. This is where those doors led. Number 12. Mary Wilson/Holiday, Madonna, 1983. Before I tell you about this song, I need to tell you who this woman was. Mary Wilson stood on stages for 30 years. She was there at the beginning, one of the 3 original Supremes, the ones who walked into Motown and walked out as icons. The group that Diana Ross fronted and Mary Wilson built with her voice, her presence, her willingness to stay, even after Diana left, even after Motown relocated, Mary Wilson stayed, and she kept singing. She had earned the right to be discerning about what she put her name on. Around 1982, a demo landed in her direction. Written by Curtis Hudson and Lisa Stevens Crowder, 2 members of a group called Pure Energy, the song had been rejected by their own label, Prism Records, who didn't see what was there. Their DJ, a man named John Jellybean Benitez, got hold of the demo and began pitching it to people. Mary Wilson heard it. She passed. And I need you to hold that for a moment. Because Benitez was dating a young woman at the time who was working to break through in the New York music scene, a woman who had been shopping herself around, who needed something that could introduce her to the world. Her name was Madonna Holiday, hit number 1 on the Billboard dance chart in 1983. It stayed there for 5 weeks. It was the song that introduced Madonna to the world, the song that started everything, the door that opened a career that would change what pop music was allowed to be. And Mary Wilson, who had given 30 years to an industry that had given and taken in equal measure, heard it, said no, and handed the beginning of one of the most successful careers in music history to a woman who was standing in the hallway. Some names were built to last. The industry just didn't always give them the moment. Number 11. CeeLo Green/Happy, Pharrell Williams, 2014. This name deserves to be spoken clearly. CeeLo Green, born Thomas DeCarlo Calloway, had been one of the most singular voices in American soul music for 20 years by the time this story takes place. He was Goody Mob. He was Gnarls Barkley. He was Crazy, one of the most played songs of the mid-2000s, a song that announced something rare, a voice with no ceiling, an artist with no map. He had won multiple Grammys. He had released work of genuine originality. And in 2012, Pharrell Williams came to him with a song. Pharrell later told Howard Stern what happened. He said, "He did it. He sounded amazing on it. He burns my version." There was no question that CeeLo could sing the song. The question was whether CeeLo should. And the answer that came from his team, the powers that be, as Pharrell put it, was no. CeeLo had a Christmas album to prioritize. Elektra Records, his label, decided the timing wasn't right, and whether that decision was made with full information or not. I think you already know how this ends. Happy, the song CeeLo Green recorded and did not release, was kept by Pharrell Williams, who re-recorded it for the Despicable Me 2 soundtrack. It hit #1 in 24 countries. It became the best-selling song of 2014 in the United States, with 6.5 million copies sold. It won the Grammy for Best Pop Solo Performance. The version CeeLo Green recorded, the one Pharrell says was better, has never been officially released. Real talk, only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's one coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 10, Christina Milian /SOS, Rihanna, 2006. Christina Milian was working on her third album when this happened. She had real commercial history. Dip It Low in 2004 had reached the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. She had a fan base, a label, and a career that was still in motion. She was not unknown. She was not irrelevant. She was an active working R&B artist who was inside the machine, making decisions every day about what her next chapter would look like. And in 2006, a song called SOS was brought to her. Written by Jonathan Rodham and Evan Bogart, sampling the bass line of Tainted Love, it was pitched to Milian as a potential inclusion on her third album, So Amazing. She heard it. She passed on it. It didn't feel right for the direction of the album. She made a reasonable creative decision based on where she thought she was going. And then L.A. Reid, the CEO of Island Def Jam, had another artist record it. That artist was Rihanna. SOS hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in May 2006, and it stayed there for 3 weeks. It was Rihanna's first #1 single in the United States, the song that announced her as a superstar, the song that launched what became one of the most decorated careers in the history of popular music. And I want to be precise about what happened next. Christina Milian was dropped from Island Def Jam shortly after her album was released. She later said the label had redirected its resources toward Rihanna. The same machine that was investing in Rihanna's future had offered Christina Milian the key to it, and the key went to someone else. Number 9, Donna Summer / What's Love Got to Do With It, Tina Turner, 1984. This song has been part of your life for a long time. You know the opening, you know the key change, you know what it sounds like to hear a voice carry something both wounded and defiant. But knowing the song and knowing what it cost to get there, those are two different kinds of knowing. Let me give you the second one. What's Love Got to Do With It was written by Terry Britton and Graham Lyle in the early 1980s. It was offered to Donna Summer. Let me say that again clearly. Donna Summer, the queen of disco, the woman who had defined an entire decade of black music, who had charted more than 30 singles and sold over 100 million records, was handed this song. She sat with it for years, and she never recorded it. There are accounts that say she was uncertain about the direction, that it didn't feel right, that the timing was off. She held the song the way you hold something you're not sure is yours, and she held it too long, and eventually it went. It went to a woman named Tina Turner, who in 1984 had been out of the top 10 for more than a decade, who had survived a marriage she had to escape, who was 44 years old, who her industry had nearly decided was finished, and whether Donna Summer understood what she was releasing. I think you already have a sense of where this is going. What's Love Got to Do with It? Hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 3 weeks. It won 3 Grammy Awards, Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. Tina Turner became, at 44, the oldest female solo artist at that time to top the US charts. It was the song that changed everything. For someone else. Number 8, Mary J. Blige / Umbrella, Rihanna, 2007. Mary J. Blige does not need an introduction from me. She is the queen of hip-hop soul. She is the voice on records that redefined what R&B was allowed to feel. She built a career on radical emotional honesty, on singing the truth of grief and survival and joy, in a way that no one else had. She had earned, by 2007, every right to choose what she put her name on. Producers Tricky Stewart and The Dream brought her a song. Originally written with Britney Spears in mind, the track had already been declined by Spears' team, who were focused on a different album. So it came to Mary. She heard it, and she passed. She described why, in her own words, years later. All I heard was, she said. And I was like, yo, my fans are gonna bug out on me if they hear me talking about So I was like, I got a lot going on. I'm gonna pass. And then when she heard Rihanna do it, she said, I was like, see, it was for Rihanna. It wasn't for me. Mary J. Blige's instinct was right. It was for Rihanna. Umbrella topped the charts in 19 countries. It spent 10 weeks at #1 in the United Kingdom. It was the UK's biggest song of 2007. It won the Grammy for Best Rap Sung Collaboration. It became one of the defining songs of the decade, the song that confirmed Rihanna as something beyond a pop star, something more like a cultural force. Mary J. Blige made the right call for her, and she has said so, gracefully. She does not regret it. But the song found its home, and the home it found was enormous. Number 7, TLC / Heartbreak Hotel, Whitney Houston, 1999. TLC, T-Boz, Left Eye Chili were the most commercially successful American girl group in history by the late 1990s. Fan Mail, their third album, was in production, and the production team of Soul Shock and Carlin submitted a song to them. The song was called Heartbreak Hotel, not the Elvis Presley standard, something different, an R&B ballad built around the ache of betrayal, about checking into the kind of place you go when love has destroyed something. They heard it, they turned it down, and when TLC said no, Clive Davis had another idea. Davis had Whitney Houston recorded as a duet with 2 rising R&B artists, Faith Evans and Kelly Price. The recording sessions were not easy. The vocal arrangement was complicated, but Houston nailed the lead on the third take. And what they made was something ceremonial. 3 women, 3 voices, 1 hotel at the end of a long road. Heartbreak Hotel by Whitney Houston reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It hit number 1 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart on February 2, 1999. It became the 3rd best-selling single of that entire year in the United States. It was certified double platinum by the RISA. TLC gave Whitney Houston a number 1 R&B record because they said no. And I want to be clear about something. This was not the last time TLC gave something away. Remember this. We are going to come back to it. Number 6, Aretha Franklin / Upside Down, Diana Ross, 1980. Let me tell you who Aretha Franklin was in 1979. She was the Queen of Soul. Full stop. Not a title given lightly. Not a courtesy. A fact. 42 Grammy nominations by the end of her career. 60 years of recorded music. The voice that had defined what gospel and soul could do when they collided. She had earned the right to work the way she worked, fully, deeply, on her own terms. And in 1979, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards came to her. They were chic. They had just come off La Freak, the biggest selling single in Atlantic Records history at that time. They were the hottest production team in America, and they had a song they believed was perfect for Aretha Franklin. They told her, "Sing it our way. Let us produce it. Let us control the environment." Aretha said no. She described it later in her autobiography. "They wanted me to just sing it," she said. "I wanted to study it. I need to be involved with the total musical environment." And she said this, "I could have had a big number 1 hit, but I threw them out of my house." She meant it. She meant both parts. Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards took the songs they had written, Upside Down and I'm Coming Out, and brought them to Diana Ross instead. Upside Down hit the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in September 1980. It stayed there for 4 weeks. It was Diana Ross's first number 1 single in 4 years. It launched the best-selling studio album of her solo career. It returned one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived to the center of everything. And Aretha Franklin, the woman who threw them out of her house, she was right to work the way she worked. She was always right about that, but she was also right about the other thing. She could have had a number 1 hit. She chose her standards instead, and the hit went to Diana Ross. Number 5, Phyllis Hyman / What's Love Got to Do with It, Tina Turner. She is the name this channel was built to speak. She had a voice of extraordinary range and depth, a contralto that felt like it carried the full weight of everything she knew about living. She was a stage performer, a recording artist, a presence. She had devoted the most productive years of her career to Arista Records, to the belief that the right material and the right support could carry her to the place her talent had always pointed. What's Love Got to Do with It was brought to her. She wanted it. The song was offered to her, and Phyllis Hyman said yes, and Clive Davis said no. Davis, the head of Arista Records, her own label, would not allow her to record it. Multiple documented accounts confirm this. He decided the song was not for her. He made the decision for her. She had no recourse. And I will say clearly what most people won't. This was not an oversight. This was a gatekeeper making a choice for an artist about what her name was worth. And the song went on. What's Love Got to Do with It? Reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It won 3 Grammy Awards. It became Tina Turner's first and only U.S. solo #1 single. It is one of the most decorated songs in American music history. Phyllis Hyman said yes to this song and was told no. She left Arista in 1984. She died in 1995. She was 45 years old. If this name is new to you, that is not your fault, but it does not have to stay that way. Number 4, Janet Jackson / How Will I Know? Whitney Houston, 1986. By the mid-1980s, Janet Jackson had proven something that the industry had not been prepared for. She was not just the youngest member of a famous family. She was an artist with a specific vision, a specific voice, and a specific understanding of what she needed to be. She had fired her father as her manager. She had signed to A&M Records. She was building Control, an album that would redefine what Black women in pop were allowed to say about themselves. She was selective. She was strategic. She was right to be. And in 1985, songwriters George Merrill and Shannon Rubicam of the duo Boy Meets Girl submitted a song to Janet's team. They had written it specifically for her. Merrill later told writer Fred Bronson, "We were pretty upset because we thought it was perfect for her at the time. We had written it with her completely in mind." Janet's management heard it and passed. The song wasn't strong enough, they said. Not the right fit. She was in the middle of something more important. The song was How Will I Know? Arista A&R executive Jerry Griffith brought it to a producer named Narada Michael Walden. Walden retooled it, deepened the funk, lifted the energy, and brought in a 21-year-old singer from Newark, New Jersey, who had just been signed to the label. Whitney Houston recorded How Will I Know in 1985. The producer said he wanted something that would answer Michael Jackson, answer Prince, answer Aretha, and remind the world that Whitney was here too. How Will I Know hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1986. The music video won the MTV Video Music Award for Best Female Video. It was one of 3 consecutive #1 singles from Whitney Houston's debut album. Janet Jackson's team said the song wasn't strong enough. It launched one of the most decorated debut albums in the history of recorded music. Number 3, TLC / Baby One More Time, Britney Spears, 1999. The opening piano, the counting, the voice of a 16-year-old who was about to become one of the most famous people on earth. But knowing the song and knowing the story behind it, those are 2 different kinds of knowing. Swedish producer Max Martin had been inspired by TLC, specifically by their 1992 single, Baby Baby Baby. He believed he had written an R&B song in the spirit of that energy, something that could fit the group's direction on their next album. He titled it, Hit Me Baby One More Time. He sent it to TLC. T-Boz of TLC later told MTV News exactly what happened. She said, I was like, I like the song, but do I think it's a hit? Do I think it's TLC? I'm not saying hit me, baby. No disrespect to Britney, it's good for her. But was I going to say hit me, baby, one more time? Hell no. The song was also shown to the Backstreet Boys, who passed. Simon Cowell, who was managing British Group 5 at the time, reportedly offered Max Martin £95,000 to give the song to them. Max Martin said no. Britney Spears flew to Stockholm, Sweden. She was 16 years old. She heard the demo. She said she knew from the first listen it was a hit. She recorded it in 10 days. Baby One More Time topped the charts in more than 20 countries. It is the United Kingdom's best-selling single of 1999. It is certified quintuple platinum in the United States. It has sold over 10 million copies worldwide. It is considered one of the best-selling singles in the history of recorded music. And this is the same group. The same three women from entry number 7 who handed Whitney Houston a #1 R&B record. 2 years later, in a different direction, they handed Britney Spears the song that launched everything. TLC said no twice, to 2 different songs, in 2 different eras, for 2 different artists, and both times, history moved on without their name attached. Number 2, Whitney Houston / Where Do Broken Hearts Go, 1988. Every story on this list is about an R&B artist who said no to a song and watched someone else take the glory. This one is different. This one is about an R&B artist who said no to her own record, who had to be forced to record something she hated, who stood in a producer's office and argued against a song that was already waiting for her, and someone else was standing in the hallway. The song was Where Do Broken Hearts Go? Written by Frank Wildhorn and Chuck Jackson, it had been submitted specifically for Whitney Houston's second album, Whitney. Among the tens of thousands of songs Clive Davis's team received for that project, it was one of the first chosen. Whitney heard it, and she refused. She described it later, in a 2000 interview, "I didn't even want to do Broken Hearts. I hated the song. I didn't want to sing it." She called it trite. She said it had no depth. She fought against it, and while she was fighting, Smokey Robinson offered to record it for his own comeback album, One Heartbeat. Smokey Robinson, one of the greatest songwriters in the history of Motown, the man who wrote My Girl, Tears of a Clown, Ain't That Peculiar, that man wanted this song. The songwriters heard his offer, and they refused. They held the song for Whitney. Clive Davis held the song for Whitney, and Davis looked Whitney in the face and said, according to her own account, "This is your #1 song." She recorded it. Reluctantly, under orders, she found something in it, eventually, something she could relate to, and Narada Michael Walden reworked the production. Where Do Broken Hearts Go? Hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1988. It was Whitney Houston's 7th consecutive #1 single. 7 in a row. The record previously held by the Beatles and the Bee Gees, shared at 6, was shattered by a woman who had tried to walk away from the song that broke it. That record has never been broken. Not by Michael Jackson, not by Mariah Carey, not by anyone. And Smokey Robinson, who was standing in the hallway, recorded his album, One Heartbeat. It was a fine record. It did not have Where Do Broken Hearts Go? I know. I felt the same way when I found this. Number 1. Janet Jackson / I'm a Slave for You, Britney Spears, 2001. I told you we were not done with Janet Jackson. Let me tell you what was true about her in 2001. She was one of the most powerful artists alive. Control, released in 1986, had redefined what Black women in pop were allowed to say about autonomy and desire. Rhythm Nation 1814, released in 1989, had spawned 7 top 5 singles, a record at the time. Janet, in 1993, The Velvet Rope, in 1997. Album after album, she had proven that she was not a legacy act. She was the standard that everything else was measured against. She was preparing her 7th studio album, All For You, and she was working with Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, the Neptunes, who were at the time the most sought-after production team in music. They made her a song. Pharrell described what happened on the Drink Champs podcast in 2020. He said, "The Queen, Janet Jackson, our sis, we made Slave for You, and she actually recorded it, but she just didn't use it. She recorded a demo, she held it, and she let it go." Pharrell said, "When she didn't use it, we gave it to Britney Spears." The Neptunes had previously worked with Jackson on the Velvet Rope album. They understood her sound. They had written I'm a Slave for You in the language of Janet Jackson's own catalog, the snake hip funk of Nasty, the steel cool control of Control, the sensuality she had taught the genre to carry. It was built for her. And she said no. Britney Spears, 19 years old, at the height of her commercial power, took the song and recorded it in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm a Slave for You was released on September 17, 2001. The MTV Video Music Award performance, Britney on stage with a live albino Burmese python, became one of the most watched moments in the history of that ceremony. It announced a new version of Britney Spears to the world. It became the defining song of the Neptunes' era of commercial dominance. It is considered one of the defining songs of the early 2000s. And I want to be precise about what came next for Janet Jackson. 3 years later, in 2004, her career was nearly destroyed by a Super Bowl halftime show incident that was not entirely of her making. The industry that had given her everything, that had built careers on the sound she created, turned on her with a speed that should make anyone uncomfortable. Her music was pulled from radio. Her image was managed for her by people who benefited from her silence. The song the Neptunes had written for her was famous under someone else's name. The era she had predicted and pioneered was credited to someone else's catalog. And Janet Jackson, the woman who said no to How Will I Know, who handed Whitney Houston a #1 single, who said no to I'm a Slave for You, who handed Britney Spears a career-defining moment, Janet Jackson stood at the center of one of the most watched events in television history and watched the industry decide she was disposable. She gave the songs away because she made decisions about what fit, about what she needed, about who she was. And what history did with those decisions is the thing I want you to carry when you leave this video. Some artists give everything to the culture. The culture does not always return the favor. History forgot. We won't.